What's up, YouTube? I'm the Car131, and in this video, I'm going to go over why I use a 12 to 18-inch standard in all of my gel tests. Sort of disclaimer, real quick. I'm not a professional. I'm not a, if this is even a word, it should be, but I'm not a ballistician or a ballistics expert or anything like that. I am a guy with guns, ballistics gel, and I've read some stuff online, and I use some of my common sense or logic as I see it. Now, if you disagree with anything that I say in this video, I encourage you to tell me in the comments below. We can have a civilized debate about it. If you're salty and you want to bitch, also do that in the comments below because it still helps my interactions. Gel tests are kind of a staple of my channel at this point. I've done a fair amount of them, and I'm going to continue doing them. I enjoy them, but in all of them, I look for a penetration standard of 12 to 18 inches. That sort of window right there of penetration is what I look for. Now, that number comes directly from a paper from the FBI called "Handgun Wounding Factors and Effectiveness," I believe. I will link a PDF in the description for you to go check out. I highly encourage everyone to go read it. So, why am I using that 12 to 18-inch number for penetration on rifles and shotguns when the paper is very clearly, as per the title, meant for handguns? Well, because I would argue, and I'm kind of doing that in this video, I would argue that even though rifles and shotguns have more energy, which I'll go over later, I think penetration is still the most important factor. There are two ways to take down a target or a threat. The first one, the best way, is to destroy the central nervous system or the upper spinal column. Basically, shoot them in the brain, shoot them in the head. Now, that is obviously going to be the best, most effective, and quickest way to stop a threat from being a threat. However, because aiming like right here is kind of hard to do in a high stress, highly dynamic situation like most self defense shooting encounters tend to be, people don't really recommend that as the number one thing to target. The second best thing is to cause rapid blood loss. How do you do that? Penetration. You need to get deep enough penetration in a human body to not only hit, but perforate and destroy vital organs such as the heart and cause very rapid blood loss, leading to incapacitation, leading to them falling unconscious due to blood loss into their brain. Now, it doesn't really matter if you're shooting handguns, rifles, or shotguns. They all need to have deep enough penetration in order to do that. Now, some people in my comments have stated that they think 12 to 18 inches is too much penetration. So let me kind of go over that real quick. That number, as I understand it, and just kind of again like common sense being put into it, that number is formulated so that in a very wide array of circumstances, that bullet will penetrate deep enough to hit those vital organs. Whether it be a miraculously perfectly ideal frontal shot, which I'm guessing doesn't happen very much in the real world, or maybe a shot from the side where you have to go all the way through the arm to hit their vital organs, or maybe they have a gun pointed at you. So depending on the angles and everything, your bullet might have to go through their hand. It might have to go up their arm, yada yada. Or it could be the person threatening you, or the target is a 110-pound woman or a 400-pound bodybuilder. If a bullet penetrates between 12 and 18 inches in ballistics gel, it will typically, in a large variety of situations, penetrate deep enough to hit vital organs, again, across that large sort of spectrum of situations, not just the perfectly ideal frontal shot. There's also the very simple fact that I don't think a lot of people get this. Penetration in ballistics gel is not a one-to-one comparison with penetration in a human body, okay? Ballistics gel is made to simulate soft tissue. It's homogeneous. It's only the one material. It's all ballistics gel. A human body is heterogeneous. There's a lot of different tissues. There's some harder, some softer. There's muscle, bone, fat, tendon, organs that are kind of just largely air, like the lungs. You have denser organs, yada yada. Uh, there's a lot more things that a bullet will have to contend to. A lot more things a bullet will have to contend with. Sorry, if uh, if a bullet is hitting a human body. So just because that one bullet design penetrates, say, 12 inches in ballistics gel, does not mean it will penetrate 12 inches inside of human body. What it means is if it penetrates that far in ballistic gel, it will probably penetrate deep enough in a human body, however deep that penetration may be, it will probably get deep enough to hit and destroy those vital organs. Last thing in regards to overpenetration, let's look at the statistics, rough sort statistics for cops. I believe the NYPD statistics a couple years ago, whatever it was something along the lines of police in shootings only hit their target like 30% of the time. Okay. And these are people that are, I know, roll your eyes, quote marks, trained to shoot like active shooters and stuff like that. But also, they're more likely to engage targets in public, I would say, more likely around other people. So to say that you're worried about a bullet hitting a target and then going through someone versus that roughly 70% of bullets that are probably just going to entirely miss the target, your priorities are kind of skewed there, I think. You should be more worried about your bullets actually hitting the target than them punching all the way through the target, when the fact is, any bullet that misses the target has a pretty high chance of hurting someone else, let alone going all the way through someone. Now, add on to that, I simply cannot find very many instances of a civilian, like a lawful civilian self-defense shooting where they hit the target, it penetrated all the way through, and then it hurt someone else, like an innocent third-party bystander. Has it happened? Absolutely. However, and if you can find many instances like this, link them in the comments below. One of them did happen actually pretty recently. The I believe old Adam Baldwin, that whole instance. If you haven't heard about that, where the hell are you? But that is one instance where obviously overpenetration can be a issue. However, the simple fact is, again, that's one instance, and that's kind of skewed in and of itself, given that they were filming. There was a lot of people around, so it was a highly populated area, and all the other factors that went into that. But again, if you could find many instances, tell me in the comments. But I just don't think it happens that much. Can it? Absolutely. However, is it also overstimulated or over talked about in my opinion? Yes. More about shotguns and rifles having more energy than, pistols. They absolutely do. As far as foot-pounds of energy, on average, excluding like 500 Magnum in extreme cases, most shotguns and rifles have significantly more energy than handguns. However, the fact is, energy dump alone is not always going to stop a threat. Now, I think of energy jump as kinda similar to a temporary cavity, which is to say, basically, it's the transfer of kinetic energy from the bullet onto the, tissue of the target, basically. Can that extra energy dump from a shotgun or rifle round sometimes stop a threat where a handgun bullet wouldn't? Sure, it absolutely could sometimes. However, it also sometimes might not. At another point in that same FBI article that I talked about, where I'm getting most of my information from, they very clearly state that due to various natural or pharmaceutical reasons or factors, people may very well just not feel pain. You can see this a number of times in police shootings where you see a subject advancing on a cop, he lights him up, and the dude just keeps on walking like he doesn't feel anything, whether that be adrenaline or high pain tolerance, alcohol, or drugs, whatever various drugs he might be on. It's entirely possible that a person that you engage may just not feel the pain of getting hit. So that extra energy dump from a rifle or shotgun cannot always be relied upon to stop a threat, which is why I don't want to rely upon it. I want to plan for the worst possible scenario. Some people in my comments have kind of stated that they think the extra energy dump from rifles or shotguns is enough to compensate for a lack of penetration. In some instances, it might be, absolutely. Temporary cavity due to rifles is bigger and it can cause tearing of tissue, yes. However, and it might give you a little bit more leeway on that 12 to 18-inch standard. However, that doesn't mean that just because a rifle round creates a very large temporary cavity, you can get away with that bullet only penetrating 6 inches. In a similar vein to energy dump is the concept of knockdown power, or stopping power, another way you could hear it. The entire concept is largely a myth. There was this real smart guy that lived a couple hundred years ago, by the name of Newton, I think. He came up with a couple laws of physics, I believe. One of them, the third one, said that basically for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If you expected a bullet to have legitimate knockdown power on a target, that roughly same amount of energy would be transferred back onto you. The very simple fact is the mass difference between a tiny little bullet and a person, it's just too great. The bullet in most instances is not going to actually have enough power to knock down a target. Believe it or not, if you get hit with a shotgun, unlike in the movies, you don't go flying 2 or 3 feet back in the air. I'm sort of wrapping up this video. I'm losing a lot of my light here, but wrapping up the video, I'd like to kind of go over this concept real quick. If you have already decided to draw a firearm on a threat and you decide to pull the trigger, that threat is already elevated to a lethal level of threat. On the use of force continuum, they have already elevated themselves to a lethal threat. You responded in kind. So at that point, you should be shooting for the kill. Now, that might trigger some people, but it's kind of a logical fact. If they have already gotten to that point and the situation has devolved enough that you've tried de escalation, you tried all that, uh, if it has devolved to the point where you have to pull your trigger in defense of your life or someone else's life, you're not shooting for the leg, you're not shooting to wound them, you are shooting to stop the threat, and the quickest way to do that is to kill them. It is unfortunate if it gets to that point, which is why everybody should be practiced and trained in de-escalation techniques or tactics or de-escalation de-escalation of situations, whatever way you want to say it. But if you have decided you need to pull your trigger on a threat, you're shooting to kill because that is the quickest way to stop that threat from being a threat to innocent life. And in my personal opinion, to use anything less than the to use anything less than the most lethal possible bullet in that situation is just giving that threat more time to be a threat. There's a reason why you don't use less lethal rounds like beanbag rounds on a situation, beanbag rounds or rubber buckshot or something like that. There's a reason why you don't want to use that on someone that has a gun to someone's head or someone that's pointing a gun at you, because that is a less than lethal round and that's going to give them additional time to continue being a threat to your life or someone else's life. Which is why I believe even with handguns and rifles, your round should still penetrate between 12 to 18 inches to be as lethal as it possibly can in the very unfortunate situation that you do need to pull your trigger on a threat. So that was my video. If you, like I said in the beginning, if you disagree, I encourage you to tell me in the comments. I'd love to debate, to have some debates over this topic. If you just want to be salty and bitch at me and not have any kind of real logical debate, still tell me in the comments because it still helps my interactions. Give me a like. I appreciate it. But yeah, so that's my video on why I still use the 12 to 18-inch penetration standard for all of my gel tests, including rifle and shotgun. If you enjoyed the video, you found it informative, entertaining, you want to discuss it with me, you want to comment on what you thought of it, tell me in the comments below. Give me a like. I appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to see some gel tests in the future. And the Calcar 131, signing off.